Hey y'all, so today we're talking about color ID maps, also just called ID maps, mask maps, mats. There's a lot of different names that I've heard these called over different courses of my career. The most important thing to think about and take away here, though, is that a color ID map is able to be used in software like Substance Painter for you to effectively combine multiple materials into one material. So why do you want to do this? You do it because it's a massive optimization and efficiency change. So if I have one object, such as this cube in front of me, and I have four different colors that I want assigned to it, four different materials, if you will, but I don't need four different materials worth of textures. Meaning if I'm taking this cube into Unity's HDRP, I don't want to have to ingest into the project, work with, and build into my final executable four different materials that each have a diffuse map, a smoothness map, a normal map, a metallic map that rolls into a mask map, all of that stuff. We don't need it. It's just extra wasted memory and space. So instead what we're going to do is use a color ID map inside of Painter, which will be our software that we're going to be using to paint the material on. So let me go ahead and do a couple basic things. So I'm just grabbing a basic cube. I'm going to go ahead and carve this up into a few different faces that we can play around with. Come over into my materials here. Let me shrink myself just a good bit. So we have one material here that's assigned to everything. Perfectly fine. What I want to do now is to create some materials that I can assign to other pieces. So I'm going to come in here and let's do a red material. Let's do a blue material. Let's do a green material. And then we can leave our default material in there as well. So I'm going to grab a few faces, maybe make this almost like an interesting die of some sort. Going to assign the red to these faces. And just to see that, let's turn on our actual color mode here in the renderer. And then going to assign blue to these faces. And let's assign green to these faces. So nothing too crazy, but an interesting kind of texture, an interesting grouping of materials. And right now we would be painting four separate materials if we send this straight into Substance Painter. So let me go ahead and select this object. After exporting it out as an FBX, I'm going to call this our format cube. So this is our four material cube. Then what I want to do is delete out all but one material, because I only want this one material to be the material that needs these texture maps to be created for it in Substance. From here, I can export this exact same shape, the exact same model as our one mat cube. If I come over into Painter, now we need to look at which of these models are we pulling into Painter. So because I only want to populate one material, I'm going to pull in the one mat cube. But let's see what happens if I pull in the other. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. And now from in here, I can see that if I start painting, things get a little bit wonky. I'm not quite sure what's happening. I have to switch between materials in order to paint on any specific piece of this. And you can start to see how this is kind of a clumsy workflow that's going to end up with me exporting 2, 3, 4, 5 textures per material. So it's just not efficient. It's not how we want to do this. So if I want to come in here and instead of having four materials, I want to just have one, I'm going to select my one mat. I'm going to open, discard what I had, and see that we just have the one material. So this is great, and we can paint all over the cube, and that's cool. But what we still want to do is not lose the differentiator of each of the quadrants that we created. So let's come over here and just grab a few smart materials, because why not? They're fun. I'm going to pull over aluminum. I'm going to pull over maybe this aged bronze. I'm going to pull over maybe a fabric. And I'm going to pull over some glass maybe. Point being, I'm pulling in different types of materials that I want to be using, but I want to use those quadrants to effectively bake in where they can and can't be using masks. So I'm going to go into my bake panel, and I want to come over to the high definition meshes, click on this button here, and I want to use this format cube to bake specifically my ID map, but just because I may also at some point want to use world space normals, AO, etc., I'm just going to leave them all checked on. I'm going to hit bake selected, and now it's going to bake these out for me. Now, an important one to look at is this ID map. You can see just a little bit in this small thumbnail of how interesting that bake came through. So let's go ahead and come back out into our paint window. And now I can come over into this glass film and I can right click and say, hey, add a mask to this with a color selection. And what I might even want to do is to add a black mask and then add in white, which will then only allow it to come through on top of that black mask. All right, so now we have that painted. So now we can close up our glass film. Let's go to the fabric and let's add a black mask to that. Now if I want to add back in white, I'm going to add mask, pull it to white, and I'm going to pick a new color. So let's say red. Now if I want to come down to my bronze, let's add a black mask to that so it will mask it all. Then we can come back in and add a mask with color selection once again, and we'll do green. Now what we have are a bunch of masked out materials that all fall up into one material up here at the top. So when I bake all of this out, it's going to effectively, let's just go ahead and do Unity HDRP. Let's push this out into cube test and let's hit export. So now what we have coming out of this are these three textures, the base map, the mask map, and the normal map that I can easily pull into Unity and leverage. If we had kept all four as four separate materials, we would now have 12 different textures that all need to be imported for this one element. So hopefully this is helpful to explain the core concept of how to use an ID map or a color map. All of this is really all about masks and painting out different types of texture within your object. I'm always happy to come back in here and do a test with a much higher fidelity asset. You can imagine a character walking around a city that you want to look like a worker. You may have pulled down from a site like Turbo Squid or the Unity Asset Store, and it has the high-vis vest as one material, and it has the skin as another material, the shirt as another, the jeans as another, the boots as another. You get my point. This is a way to combine all of those into one material and have all of them reading from a texture map that can still be painted in a very delicate way inside of Substance Painter and just leverage that as a mask. I hope y'all are having a great day. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.